you know what one of the most lucrative careers is in IT? It's something that most people who are new getting into IT don't even think about. In this next episode of TCP Handshakes, I'm going to have a chat with somebody who can tell you a little bit more about it. Hey everybody, what's good? What's going on? JB here with another CyberInsight video. Today's video is going to be a continuation of our TCP Handshakes chat series. I'm going to be talking with my friend Brandon, who happens to be a sales engineer at Proofpoint. Before we hop into the video, you know what I need you to do. Hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell. I appreciate it very much. And let's start chatting with Brandon. Maybe a good way to kick things off would be to kind of have you give a little bit of background about yourself and how you've gotten to the point of what you're doing in your career now. And then we can kind of just go from there.
All right. So first of all, my name is Brandon Robinson, as you guys have seen, that you see here. So I'm a senior sales engineer for Proofpoint, which is a threat detection, email, and we kind of do some of everything, right? People know us for email, but we really do some of everything. So I think we do threat detection, we do email, we do CASB, we do all of those things, but this isn't a marketing pitch for Proofpoint. Some of the things we do.
If it is, then I better get some free swag or something. Like I need a shirt or something.
I better get some money for this.
Yeah.
So I better get some money. Well, while we getting paid, we both better be getting something. But yeah, so I'm a senior sales engineer there. I've been there almost 3 years. Now, one of the things I think that happened, this happened to be maybe a few months ago when I started a thread. Remember, I started that thread on sales engineers and what a sales engineer does and all of that. So I've been a sales engineer for probably 8 years, the last 8 years or so, I'm going to guess around there. Now, I started off in tech support. So people may ask, because a common question I got was, how do I make a transition to be a sales engineer? How does one be a sales engineer?
Sure.
And the correct and honest answer is there are many paths to being a sales engineer, right? There's no one cookie cutter. Like, it's not like you can just go get one certificate and then boom, you're ready to be an SE. Now my route was I was a tech support. I worked tech support for about 2.5 years. Very interesting. Learned a ton. I worked at a place called Barracuda Networks.
Oh yeah, Barracuda.
Yeah, right. Like the SMB champion of, of the spam gateway, right? Like that's a claim to fame. And not to mention that they have an ad in every airport in America, probably.
That, and I think they even have ads on like NPR and everything. They're all over the place.
They spared no. I'm not even gonna do it.
No. NDA. So you're under an NDA somewhere, probably. So don't do it.
No, this is probably expired by now. But yeah, so I started there in tech support. I was there for about. I think I did 5 years at Barracuda, which is really like 10 or 15 somewhere else. If you talk to somebody from Barracuda, they'll tell you that's like 10 or 15 somewhere else. So, but I transitioned from tech support over to being a sales engineer. So I went from being a tier 1 to a team lead there. One of the things that was interesting there was, I was like first of all, it was only 2 black tech support. There was only 2 people in tech support that were black. It was myself and a guy named Darren.
And where were you located?
Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, Ann Arbor, Michigan. So they opened up a Michigan office, which was started off with their archiver solution and then their backup solution, right? And then they kind of branched out and built out tech support, and we started to expand even into building out a sales engineer, which I'll jump into. Okay. But all of that to say is that, I started off there. I had to climb the ranks. I'm sure we'll talk about race at some point.
Yep.
There's a whole separate topic of how I faced racism there and hurdles I had to go through, being one of the only 2 and really being the only black person that was climbing the corporate ladder there. Obviously there are stories and all kind of things that go with that. But I went from being that to being the first black team lead, especially in Ann Arbor, probably in the company. I didn't know of any other, but so I'm just going to claim that.
Just take it.
Yeah, basically. So being the only so doing that, and then I transitioned over to being a sales engineer because I used to work with the really difficult customers.
Hmm.
When you're a team lead, you get to work with you get the privilege of working with the difficult. Lucky me, right? So there's a guy. His name was Rod. I forgot his last name. Rod was my guy. He actually was in Southfield, right?
Okay.
And so we're in Ann Arbor, and I'm from Detroit. That's where it's
Yeah.
a suburb of Detroit. So Rod used to snap on people. I'm talking about go off on people. Like nobody, like other sales engineers in Cali couldn't deal with him. Other
Yeah.
people like Rod. So, but he got me on a call, and I'm really good with people
Yeah. Yeah.
in general, but I'm from the city too. So when Rod's going off, I give him a couple of minutes. I'm like, all right, man, you done? You like stop tripping. You done now? He knew I was black, so he was
Right.
good. So I
Right.
connected with him on that level. And so what happened is they just assigned me to him. They was like, look, you're the only person that can really deal with him. We're gonna let you really deal with him. So unofficially, I was like Rod's person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they wanted me to go out and install some of our hardware there because he had to have a replacement. So instead of flying people, we didn't have any security sales engineers
Hmm.
on this side of the country. They're all in Cali. So they sent me out. They was like, "Do you mind going?" I'm like, "Sure."
Yeah.
I have no clue what I'm doing. When I tell you I have no clue, I'm in tech support. We never got a chance to actually see the software and install or the hardware and install it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we go out there. I go out
How
there.
many folks are with you at that point?
Me,
Just you.
just me.
Just you.
That's it.
You on a plane with a box that you haven't even
No,
opened.
not on a plane. I
Oh.
was in a car
Oh,
because
okay.
it was
Okay.
Michigan.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I drove to Southfield, which is basically 10 minutes from where I grew up at.
Mm.
But I'm in the data center clueless. Hey, I don't know, but I'm telling you, my face looks so calm inside.
Yeah.
I'm freaking out. Like, oh my god, I don't know what I'm doing. But somehow we worked it out, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Somehow it worked out. It ended up working out.
Mm.
We figured it out and fixed it, got our stuff all set up. I'm like, thank you, Jesus, because I have no clue what happened. And so as I go back to the office, I'm really, I'm a social guy, so I talk to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And there we have like a group of storage SEs. Now I didn't know this was happening behind the scenes. And for me, I'm a Christian, so I'm like, okay, well, God is really setting me up here, like,
Yep.
opening doors that I don't know about.
Right. Right.
And so I had a guy, his name was Josh. Josh was really cool. But I was cool, like the PM. I'm still really cool, even though he went to another company. Like he's still one of my favorite people that I work with. But anyhow, so when I came back in, he's like, "Hey, how did you like it?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "It was cool." I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "How would you like to do something like this if you got to travel like, what do you say, once a quarter or so often, and so many times a quarter?" In my head, the first thing I thought was no. But I'm like, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm like, yeah, that'd be great, right? So I'm like, okay, because I'm really close. Like my pastors are like a second set of parents, and I remember she was telling me like when opportunities come, if you don't feel qualified, still say yes. So I'm like, all right. Worst thing to happen is I say yes and I don't do well, but
Right.
nothing worse than just limiting yourself. So I
Right.
said yeah. And unbeknownst to me, like they were already working on it. They had a guy that they were trying to bring in. They had like a general manager so it was a general manager who was going out to California trying to position to get me moved over from support because the joke was you never got out of support. Our VP of support used to tell people you belong to me. Like I mean, it was crazy, man. That dude was crazy. But he was like, "No, you
I mean, so
belong to me."
it's kind of the same mentality where you see like people just get stuck on the help desk in
Exactly.
organizations for their whole
Yes.
career, right? And it's almost like
Exactly that.
they get into a fog or a haze where they can't
Mhm.
see the way out, and a lot of times they undersell themselves on the skills that they've picked up in,
Mhm.
you're like, oh, all I do is I reset passwords and stuff like that. But then if you actually dig a little bit deeper into, okay, well, what are the ways that you're actually interacting with people and managing things and stuff like that? You
Yeah.
actually have a lot more skills, even if they're on the soft side, that you could
Yep.
leverage to do other things in IT.
Yep. Which leverages to my soft skills. Honestly,
Hmm.
my soft skills has been a lot of what's really allowed me to have access into a lot of places.
Hmm.
Right.
Yep.
Um, my people skills are pretty elite, to be honest. Like, I mean, my recent boss is like, I hired you because of your people skills. I'm
Well, I
like,
mean,
okay,
and in
I'll take it.
sales, that's what's gonna, take it.
It
So
works to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so I got over into being an SE. We built up the team. Um, the guy who came on board, I ended up training him from a technical standpoint.
yep.
And he gave me, he trained me on the sales aspect of things, right? So we both helped each other out. We built the team out. He left. Then I ended up kind of leading the security team
Yep.
until I moved on, right? And then I jumped on to Tenable to where I am now, Proofpoint. So that's kind of how I became a sales engineer.
So once you
I
made,
actually felt. Go ahead.
once you made that jump into a sales
Mhm.
engineer with Barracuda, then everything you've done since then has been in sales engineering.
Everything, yeah. So I spent 2.5 years, or a little under 2.5, in support,
Yep.
and the rest was being a sales engineer.
Okay. Cool. Cool. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just going to say I actually think the sales engineer position was really made for me because I get to talk to people, which I want to do anyway,
Right.
and it's technical. So I'm like, I can't believe this is. If you know how much I got in trouble in school for talking, like it was so bad. Like I don't care where people put me, I
Yeah.
was going to talk to people.
I mean, that's
Like by
actually
my.
a really, really good point that I've never heard anybody make before for the people that are kind of like
Mhm.
really outgoing and in school are always being told like, hey, you need to pay attention, you need to calm down, you need to stop doing that.
Yeah,
Sales position, like if you got it together, then that works perfect for real.
and it worked perfect. And I'm
Yeah.
like, so by my senior year, it was so bad that when the teacher, I'll never, it was my calculus teacher. Her name was Mrs. Jones, and she was excited because I've been talking all year. I mean, because I can't help it. I am who I am. And so my parents came in, and she was like, "Yeah, he just talks." And there's like, we know." And I'm like, "Yes, I finally broke him. It took me into the 12th grade, but I broke him." Um, but that's how I feel like the position was made for me. Like I get to talk with people, I get to build relationships. I get to talk tech. I love tech,
Yeah.
so I get to do both. For me, it's perfect.
Why do you think that there's maybe a lack of knowledge or a lack of awareness for people getting into
Mhm.
IT and cyber about the potential of sales engineering roles? You don't,
I'd almost say it's a lack. Yeah, it's a lack of visibility too, right?
yeah, sure. Yeah,
Um, it's almost like I'm not going to call it a secret society. Um, I think because a lot of people, when you go into, so first of all, you got to think about it. When you go into tech and you go into security, what's the things that are pushed out to you? Like you're
sure.
pushed out to be either a penetration tester, red teamer, blue teamer.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
You want to be, I mean, the movies, like we all want to be hackers, right? Like
Right,
that's
right.
what we want to do. I mean, that's like the coolest thing, right? That's
Right.
what's
Yeah.
marketed to. I mean, it is cool too. I'm not saying it's not cool because it's really cool too.
Yeah.
But I don't think people realize that you can have this skill set. And you know what? Another thing that I commonly hear from people is, I don't want to sell. I'm not a salesy person. I don't want to sell to people.
Yeah.
So I think it's also a misconception about what the position is, right? Like they
Sure.
think you are like a used car salesman, or I'm just going to your door like, hey, I got this vacuum cleaner, and if you
Yeah.
just let me just vacuum your carpet, like, no, that's not what we do. Like, that's I'm having conversations with CISOs and CIOs, and
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
like we're talking about their infrastructure, their plan for the year, like their business
Right.
goals, and
Yep.
I'm going through the technology suite. Like not only am I going through Proofpoint stuff, but we're talking about firewall plans and projects,
Right.
endpoint
Yep.
plans and projects, how it all ties together. So I end up being more of a consultant, advising them on how to
Sure.
build programs or listening to. So I mean, I just think that if people understood what it really was, and then some of it is when you're in tech, you want to be what people consider the most technical person in the room.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of that is honestly rooted in insecurity, right? Like if you think about
Sure.
us as tech people, like being very smart growing up, being very intelligent, a lot of us were ridiculed, made fun of, or ostracized or treated very weird because
Right.
of our intellect, because of our passions around tech,
Yep.
right? So we call it nerds and geeks. People have embraced it now because it's cool now.
Well,
It
because
wasn't
it,
cool
it
then.
it pays. So So, you know, that whole thing is kind of, you know, gone the other way where it's now, you know, young people are like, oh, well, crap, you can make six figures if you get into IT or cyber and stuff like that. So I guess that's
Yeah.
not something to make fun of as much anymore.
Yeah. No, it's not. And I think having that mentality really makes it easier, right, for people to go into it, right, like or to do it. So I think I think it's really just a misperception
Mm,
that keeps people away from it because then they're afraid. I don't know how to sell nothing,
right.
or people be like, I'm not good with people, or you know, you got a lot of different reasons why. But I think once people, and I think they don't know about the salary potential.
Sure.
Because once they find out about the salary potential,
Right.
I'm telling you,
Yep.
courage comes out of nowhere. Like you can get how much? You can do what? You have flexibility? Like
Right.
shoot.
Yep.
So I think that's what it is.
And kind of to your point about you're not really trying to sell somebody a Ford Pinto or, you know, something, you know,
Right.
something horrible that they don't really want. In a lot of
Yeah.
cases, these organizations already have these needs or requirements that they're
Hmm.
reaching out to you
They are.
to try to find a solution for them. Compared to
Yep.
you having, you know, your duffel bag full of stuff, like you said, you're showing up and trying to, you
Hmm.
know, wipe down people's, you know, windows and stuff like that outside their house with a
Yeah.
squeegee or
Yeah.
something.
We're not doing that. No, they're actually coming to talk to us, right? Like what people will find out is that it's such a tight knit community inside of security that once
Yeah,
you're in there, people a lot of times just job hop and job jump.
sure.
So you're gonna know a ton of people.
Yep.
Like somebody might be the director of IT somewhere.
Yep.
Somebody might be a CISO. Somebody might be on a SOC team.
Yep.
It's all kind of things.
Yep. And companies acquire other companies so much.
They
So
do.
it's like, you know, whatever the product was that was over there, if it, you know, it really has a differentiator, but the company isn't all that great, chances are somebody else is going to come along and suck it up.
Hmm.
And then so you really
Hmm.
have a lot of cross pollination between
Hmm.
folks going between, you know, different products and different jobs and stuff like that.
That's very true.
So you did Barracuda, became a sales engineer, sales lead there, and then you went to Tenable, right? And
Yeah.
so how long were you at Tenable for?
Oh man. I think I was at Tenable for maybe. I think I only did like maybe 2.5 years there.
Cool.
Yeah, I want to say I did like 2.5. Yeah.
And did you do a lot of traveling with that, or was that all kind of localized out that way?
So Tenable, when I first signed on, I did Michigan and Wisconsin were the two states I had. So just
Oh,
Midwest.
okay, that's not too
Um,
bad.
no, not too bad. So Barracuda, I was everywhere, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
from California to Alabama to Maryland to you name it, right? Like I'm everywhere. Tenable, the most we went to, like sometimes going to the headquarters in Maryland,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of Wisconsin, a lot of Milwaukee, a lot of,
Yep.
hitting those areas and just really Michigan. That was really interesting too. I was the only black sales engineer or enterprise
Yep.
sales engineer there. So that experience
Yeah, you've talked
was
about
very
that. You've talked about that a bit before about
yes,
the
yeah.
trials that came with that
Oh man,
position.
yeah, yeah. That was hard. Tenable was I thought Barracuda was tough.
Yeah.
Tenable was like, hey, I know you thought Barracuda was something, but hey, look at this. And I'm, oh my God.
Ugh.
But I did get so some of the positive things that did come out of Tenable were the relationships I had with like coworkers and
Sure.
peers. From JD, that's Jack Daniels, but I call him JD.
Yep.
Um, JD's my guy. Like we worked there. My guy Steve, love JD.
Yep.
And some other people that I met there too. But those two, right? Steve is, and hopefully he doesn't mind me using his whole government name. Um, my bad if you do,
I
Steve.
mean,
I love you though.
I can add in some beeps or something there if we
Yeah, we're gonna add a
we
beep
need to
in for
do
the
that.
last name. We'll say Steve. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Steve basically introduced me to the whole like con scene,
Yeah, yeah.
all
Okay.
those things. Like going to ThoughtCon, I'll never forget. Like I didn't even know people had conferences around this.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I was the same way. I had no idea about any of it. That and Twitter too.
yeah,
I wasn't plugged into any of that. So it's just like
yeah,
the the ecosystem that I was aware of was all of the people
yeah.
that I had worked with at some point,
Right, right.
whether it
That was
was
it.
in the military or then working for a consulting company and then working for an
Mhm.
ISP. It was like, you know, that was it. And of course, doing the government work, that's a little bit of a smaller ecosystem, right? So
That is it. Yeah,
you
that's
do
true.
have, people moving back and forth between different agencies and organizations and stuff like that. So you do kind of know people. But outside of that, yeah, the conferences completely like opened my eyes up to, this wide, vast group of folks that I didn't even really know existed out there.
You know, I just realized
What was
since
that?
we're being really transparent, you can see a red thing. That's my shirt in the background. I'm like, oh no.
Oh,
Can you
I
see
can
it?
barely see it from here.
Oh, good, good, good.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. No,
good.
no,
It's
no, no,
clean though. It's
no. In
clean.
fact, I didn't even notice it until you pointed it out now. And so,
I don't pay attention to it, people
yeah,
who are
yeah,
watching
yeah.
this on the left.
If you see the red shirt, drop a comment down below. No.
Yeah. Nah, but yeah, but Steve, when I went to ThoughtCon, one of the cool things that I learned about the whole security scene is you just need one person to introduce you to people.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And so Steve was like, "Oh, this is a guy I work with. He's cool." And Jack and JD was doing the same thing, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Okay." And so people just naturally embraced me, and
Yeah.
it was good. But I didn't know. First of all, I didn't know who they were in the
Right.
scene either.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like,
Which is actually probably the best way to do it, right? Because
yeah,
you get into this other weird thing with social media and Twitter and all that type of stuff
mhm,
where people kind of put people up on pedestals, right?
yeah,
And that's bad for a whole bunch of reasons, but then it's also kind
yeah.
of awkward when you see people interacting with people that way. Like
It is. It
somebody
is.
treating
Yeah.
somebody else like they're a rock star or something like that. And it's like no, that dude is a normal person. Talk to him like a normal person. Just be cool. Just be cool. Have respect and be cool. But like, some people just get, I don't know, really, really strange around people that
They get
have large
weird.
followings. Yeah.
And the good thing is, I've never really since this wasn't something I was kind of brought up in that circle.
Yeah.
A lot of the people who I met and have met, I didn't know who they were.
Right.
Like I have no idea who you are. And people later on, I'm like, oh dang, that's what that was. Or I'm like, wow, I had no idea you did all that. But I mean,
Right.
but I always treat people like regular people, even if they are someone of stature,
Sure.
because people who are in that position, they long to have genuine, authentic conversations.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
They get tired of people treating them like that, right? Like they
Right. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
want somebody to be normal to them, and that's
Like,
something that I've always aimed and strived to do.
sure. Most definitely. So, what conferences have you hit up?
Man, so I've been to ThoughtCon, and that was my first one. Then after that was DEF CON, which is was one of my favorites. I was scared straight in DEF CON. Like I'm out there talking about everything on airplane mode, burner. I didn't have a burner phone, but I was walking around paranoid. I'm talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah. Yeah.
paranoid. Yeah. Just because you hear about the stories, right? And I'm like,
Sure.
oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
God, they're gonna hack everything. And I got like the little sleeve things to protect my credit card
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
everything. I'm like, somebody bumped into me. Um,
Like, don't
so that was
stand close to me, man. Get away.
no, I'm so the second time I went though, I did get like random phones calling my number like
Oh
when
yeah.
I was checking into the hotel.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, those are the rogue cell towers. That was a bit creepy. I
Yeah.
probably wiped my phone 3 times, being paranoid, but
Damn.
this is what happens when you have an Android. Yeah, man. I just sometimes I was tripping, but
I've
yeah.
I've been
But
to
I've been there.
I've been to Black
Go ahead.
Hat like 6 or 7 times. I've never wiped my phone.
I shouldn't have wiped it. I was just tripping. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I was paranoid. I'm like, like enemy of the state. I'm like, oh my god,
Oh,
they're looking at me through my phone. Now I would. I mean, because you don't really need to do that. So I've been there though. I've been to NolaCon.
okay.
That's in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I've been there. Um, we have GERCON, which is Grand Rapids, is like Michigan's biggest one.
Okay.
We got what the heck is Converge? That's in Detroit. I've been in that obviously a bunch.
You got a
B-side,
okay, yeah.
B-side San Diego.
Oh, nice.
One of my boys, who I used to work with at Tenable, kind of like started that chapter up, or had a big thing. Is because we work with Jack, right? Like
Right.
Jack was the B-sides. Yeah. I had no idea he was doing all that. Like, and he doesn't even take it so serious. So when people's like, "Oh my God, Jack, he does this," I'm like, JD, I'm like him. And so, but yeah, so we did. I've done B-side San Diego, B-side Detroit. I didn't do. I always say I'm gonna do B-sides Las Vegas. Like I even go out there early, and I don't. Like I don't. I just want to talk to people. I'm gonna be honest. Like
I'm in the same boat with that. My problem is I like the trainings at Black Hat, right? And so the trainings at Black Hat start on Saturday and go through Tuesday. But the problem is B-sides Vegas starts on Monday.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, the trainings are awesome, and I'm paying to go out there for trainings, so I really should do the trainings.
You really should do trainings.
But one of these days, I'm going to hit up that B-sides for sure.
I am going to go one of these times. I must go. Like
I will be your accountability buddy.
Oh man, so that means we both got to go then.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not gonna pay attention most of the time. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm not gonna. I'm a hallway kind of guy.
I got you. Yeah.
I can focus through a few talks, but then I get bored. Then I'm like, all right, let me go talk to somebody. That's I am who I am. So those are most of the cons that I've been to. Just a lot of the local ones, hitting those repetitively and pretty consistent. Other stuff don't really count, like Avanta and stuff. That's like work type stuff, right? Like it's not like a con. That's like for CISOs and executives. You go there and like, it's a lot different, right?
Yeah.
The message is totally different. It's just that's a RSA. It's like RSA basically.
Yeah,
I've been to RSA too. Oh, I would talk. So great story around RSA.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just like tell the story in there. So I remember when I went to this is my first year at Tenable.
Yep.
I'm out there with Steve. Steve's like my mentor SC.
Yep.
I've only been at the company just a little bit. And so that means I have no idea what I'm doing demo wise. And so I do a little bit. And he's like, all right. And he just walks away. I'm like, Steve, they brought us out here to observe. He's like, yeah, the best way to observe is just throw you in the water. I'm like, oh my God. And so me and the guy who started the San Diego B-sides, we were both out there together.
Yeah.
And we were holding our own. When I tell you we was out there by faith, because I can't say we knew everything we was talking about, but we made it work. But Steve was like, "Oh, you did good." I'm like, "Man, let me tell you, don't do it." But
what did they have you demoing? Just like doing like scans and stuff, or like
our product? Yeah, our product, like Security Center, all that stuff.
Yeah, okay.
But Security Center is very vast, right?
Yeah. And I'm sure people come up and ask very, very specific questions. Like, well, I have an asset and it's this type of OS and it's not being automatically categorized and I don't know how to purge
you guys are detecting it and and what about your passive scanner? Will you be able to detect that when you do intrusive scans? I'm like, say what now, fam? Like, well, I've been here for about a couple of weeks. A whole scanner? I'm like, man, let me tell you. Go ask them over there. We only focus on this. But it was fun though. That's the first time I went to so JD used to have like a tiki bar, like a tiki kind of party.
Okay.
So it's like a corporate event. So the year I went was like all NSA people. Well, I mean all NSA people, like at the tiki thing.
Yeah.
So the guy Jeff Mann, that's fine. He's on Twitter, Jeff Mann. I can say his name.
Oh, I know Jeff. Yeah.
Jeff's my guy. Jeff's a really good dude, right?
Yeah, Jeff is a good dude.
The first time I meet Jeff, remind you, I'm the only black SC enterprise, right?
Yeah.
This man has on a shirt that says, "I can't breathe, Black Lives something." I'm like, I'm thinking like, if I wear this, they gonna fire me. I'm like, instantly I like him though. I'm like, oh my man. Oh, and so like we have an instant connection because I see his shirt.
Yeah.
And so like I'm talking to him, I'm talking to, I know Jay, I know JD, I know Steve. That's really all I know.
Yeah.
And so Jeff is sitting at the table with the NSA, like all these NSA people. I have no idea who these people are.
Yeah.
So I go out and I'm sitting there, and there happens to be somebody who's from Alabama, and like my family's from Alabama. So I'm talking to her. I'm talking. These are all ladies, right?
Yep.
Um, and the lady who I end up really connecting with was a lady named Rebecca Bass. Like I don't know if you know her. Most
Mm.
people, some do. Like JD and the older people and people who are like seasoned, they gonna know her, right?
Yeah.
Um, so well, she's no longer here. She went on. She passed in
Mm.
2017. But Becca, so I met her there and built such a great relationship with her
Yeah.
that basically I was like her adopted nephew.
Yep.
But why that's important is because they used to call her like the godmother of the internet, right? Like
Okay.
so she was you're familiar with Tenable. So Tenable was founded by Renault,
Yep.
Ron Gula,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so she was Ron's mentor. So
Oh,
that was
okay.
Ron's mentor.
All right.
So
Yep.
she also sat on a board to start Qualys. Like so she's done
Oh,
some amazing
yeah.
things.
Yeah.
I think she doesn't get nearly the credit that she should, right? Like she was like amazingly smart. But I met her at that RSA
Mm.
because of Jeff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff made that. So shout out to Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah. He's out there. So I met him. I actually met him at the first B-Sides that I went to, which was
Mhm.
B-Sides Nova, and it was just after the Tribe of Hackers book was published.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I went up and got him to sign my Tribe of Hackers book. So that was
Oh,
really
that's
cool.
dope. Yeah,
Yeah, he actually
yeah.
he was the keynote, I think. No.
Okay.
He was after the keynote. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so got to meet him there briefly. And then I liked that B-Sides Nova so much, I volunteered to help organize it the next
Oh,
year.
look at you.
And then
Yeah,
so that's where I really got to meet Jeff and we got to talk and stuff like that. And so
he's a good dude, ain't
he's
he?
a really good dude. Yeah, yeah,
He's super smart too. I mean,
yeah.
super smart. Like for cryptology and all that kind of stuff. Like I remember at Tenable, he was like responsible for like PCI and all that stuff
Yep.
and like more complexity of it, right? So I remember him giving me several rundowns of it and like
Yeah, yeah.
how it works, right? But really good dude though.
Yep. And I think he's still doing PCI stuff now.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think
Yeah,
he
I can see
does
that.
like PCI consulting and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, he's really good at it. Like, so Jeff, you can give me a shout out on something you no, I'm not saying that. Yeah, good dude
So
though.
kind of taking the positivity from the conferences and things like that, right?
Mhm.
I think that kind of underscores the importance of having good friends, a good network, and a good community to help
Yeah,
support and foster not only your career but kind of your growth and knowledge. And I mean, obviously, that
mhm,
bleeds over into you as a person as well, by
sure.
having those types of relationships and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I was wondering, besides the security conferences, kind of what your feelings has been with social media and specifically Twitter and things like that, and the positives or negatives that you've seen, within cyber and IT and the things that you've gotten from that.
Yeah. So I'm not as down on our community on the Twitter perspective
Okay.
because
Yeah.
um what I don't know if people because you can have tunnel vision. Each industry has problems,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
We
Most definitely.
because I've worked in more than cyber, so I've seen systemic racism, systemic oppression. I've seen chauvinism. All of those things
Yep.
exist.
Yep.
So it's not unique to us. Now it does happen, and
Right.
it is very apparent in our community, and it does need to change. But that's not one of the things that I'm like, man, if we could fix this, our community's only going to have that. Like, no, that's a systemic America problem. What I've noticed from a Twitter perspective, um, is really a willingness to embrace. Like
Yeah.
really, here's what I'll say from a black culture standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
If you black and you in cyber, I'm gonna follow you.
Yeah.
Or we gonna interact, or we gonna try to help you, we gonna try to build you
Right.
up. Like because we understand that your journey is so unique, right? We know because we've been in those boardroom meetings when your voice is discarded, when you don't have an opportunity to speak out, or when you speak out and it's questioned and all that. So we know the hurdles that you're up against. So we're a support system because we know what you face.
Right.
So that's why we rock with each other so hard. That's why if you ever at a conference or anything, you're gonna see black people, we hit you with the
Right.
nod. Even if I don't know you, I'm a
Yep.
nod to you. And what that nod is symbolic of, this is a little culture. I'm letting you in on culture secrets here.
I mean,
So
yeah.
basically, you invited to the barbecue. So don't blow this, John. You invited to the
I mean,
barbecue.
look, man, I'm just taking leftovers on my plate. Don't worry. I've been invited to some other barbecues, so I have an idea how to act. I'm not gonna mess up.
Yeah. You pretty good here, but we do that because that's saying I see you.
Right.
That's saying like I see and I know what it took for you to be here, and I know what you're going through. I'm acknowledging that you're here and you making it. It's a sign of respect.
Right.
Do you know who Jules is? So Jules is the one. She has like her own kind of what is a security awareness company. She was
I would
so
have
she's
to.
been on some stuff
I'd have to see
with
her
Paul.
her handle.
She's on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably. But anyhow, I remember meeting her at
Do you
RSA.
remember her last name?
Man, I can't pronounce it. I ain't finna do her name like that. I got too much respect for her. I don't want to do her name because if I don't pronounce it, start with an O, I think. That's all I know.
Okafor, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know who you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I met her at RSA, right? And we did the
Cool.
nod to each other.
Yeah.
And that's how we kind of like, started interacting
Yep.
because of that. But all that to say is like there's power, there's a different kind of a connection when you're on the road like that. And so that's what I felt on Twitter. I felt a huge embracing. I think that people have been willing to share information. You can learn,
Yep.
you can network, you can information up. I also think the people who will be considered like more seasoned or kind of like the OGs of it, like we give out free game, like we giving out free game to the people that's coming up, simply because we don't want them to have to go through some of the things we went through. Then you got to put in like all this stuff for learning and like, so I feel like Twitter has been a huge support system.
Yep.
I've met some of like, you know who Prof, his name is Prof Badger, but his name is Paul. So that's my brother.
Haven't met him personally, but I know who you're talking about. Yep.
That is my brother from another mother. Like, and we met on Twitter.
Yep.
And when I tell you that's like my brother, that's my brother from another mother. And that came about from Twitter. So that's the strength of it is that's what I think you can get.
Yeah.
You're always gonna have some people out there that make it kind of difficult and say stupid stuff, but like those kind of like I try my best to ignore and not argue. I'm not always successful with that. Like sometimes because I feel like once I feel like I'm getting disrespected, I'm gonna respond. Like I got a little bit of KD in me. I'm trying to get better, but I'm like, dude, we having like 10 or 15 followers. I'm like, man, who you think you're talking to? And I'm like, no. So I'm getting better though. But that's how I feel about Twitter. You feel the same? Have you? And like, I mean, not to mention, like, I got to connect with you, which is my favorite ad of 2020. So.
Right. Hey, I'll take it. No, I feel exactly the same way. I think that the amount of knowledge sharing is absolutely phenomenal. And I try to do as much of it as I can. I try to keep my DMs open. I try to, answer any questions. Oh yeah.
No, I'm just messing with you.
I try to answer any questions that come in. People tag me on stuff all the time, asking for my opinions on stuff, and I try to give as useful information as I can, just because I want to see everybody get a piece of this IT and cyber goodness, because there's so much, so many positive things that can happen in your life coming from working in this industry.
I agree.
We obviously have a difference in our cultural backgrounds, but me from coming where I grew up and where I came from was a very poor place, right? I mean, that's why I don't live there anymore. So having the ability to get into a career field that, when you look at what the average salaries are and the potential within that, it's comparable to career fields where you would need a graduate degree or doctorate degree to be successful in that. And at this point, with the way that technology is, really, if you have the fire inside of yourself to push yourself, almost all that information is out there for free. Now,
that's true.
It doesn't mean that you won't have to work harder to kind of piece all that information together compared to, taking a class which hands everything to you. but the fact that those pathways are there and free, and the opportunity that's available to you once you gain that knowledge, is something that I'm very passionate about, and I just want to try and help as many people, you know, find that same passion, get into the industry, and try to help out as many other people as they can too. Because I think that it's a real um, lifesaver, game changer, whatever terminology you want to use for
I agree.
a lot of different folks. So I love my time on Twitter so far. I mean, I know that there is a whole nasty, racist, sexist, horrible side to Twitter. Um,
Yeah,
and that's there, but that's also there in life.
that's
And
true.
I think by trying to surround yourself with like-minded folks that kind of all have the same goals, then you're kind of able to amplify your power and help more people. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I think one of the things I've realized is how you use your platform, right? As you
sure.
start to build a platform, how you use it to advocate for others.
Right.
So you're a white male, I'm a black man. So you can advocate for people who are black, whereas I can advocate for women, right? Because
Right.
there are things for that women go through that I'll never go through.
Right.
Um, so I had somebody explain something to me. I'm not gonna put her name out there because I ain't get in trouble because I don't know if she want me to put her name out there.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying my homie
Yeah.
explained something to me when we were talking about like sexism and things like this. And she's black, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, we y'all don't go through. I'm like, we all, like all black people go through the same thing. She's like, no, it's different for women. I'm like, no, it ain't. Right? I'm like, y'all go through what we go through. And she was like, nah. And I'm like, oh shoot, hold on. When I was talking to her, I realized I said, I'm doing what white people do to me
Yeah.
or have done to me.
Sure.
Because it wasn't my experience,
Right.
I discounted it
Yep.
and I didn't listen. And so mid conversation, I switched tone, I shut up and I'm like, well, please explain it to me.
Yeah.
Right. Like help me understand your perspective. When she told me her perspective, it adjusted mine because
Yeah.
now I can see it from someone else's point of view instead of just like, well, since I'm not experiencing it, it can't be true. Like, well, I'm not a woman. I'm never going to be able to experience
Right.
it. So let me learn. And so that's, one of the things I think that, is powerful about Twitter too, is being able to use your platform to, advocate for other people is
Yep.
also something that's strong. You can do there.
Yeah. I think it's easy to kind of discount something if you aren't facing it yourself. And then when you
Yeah,
multiply that by, if in your mind or your idea of yourself, you think that you wouldn't do that to somebody else,
that's exactly it.
when you
That's exactly
combine those two things, then it makes it, you know, I don't know if you want to say it's a brick wall, or it's an obstacle to overcome, to kind of look at something from somebody else's perspective.
it is. Yeah, you have to humble yourself.
Right. Yes.
So now you're
Exactly.
going to have humility to lower your own standards and stuff to see that, okay, let me take me out the equation
Yep.
because they're not talking about me. They're talking about everybody else.
Right.
Once you can get you out of the way, then it's easier to say, oh wait, no, that might be true. Okay, so that might really be their experience because they're not making this up.
Right. Right.
It's something that I've been recently, trying to grow in, and
Sure.
I think we always try to grow and mature and work on ourselves in areas. So that's
Yep.
one of the things. I mean, I got a lot of areas that I need work in, but I mean, that's at least one of them I've been doing some good work in.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good segue into talking about one of the other things that you're working on as far as self improvement and introspection, self introspection, and things like
Mhm.
that. And that is your poetry that you're working on, and that you're going to be
Yeah,
publishing a book. How soon?
January 5th.
January 5th. And what is the
Yep.
name going to be again?
When words won't form, my pen speaks. Subtitle: Using the power of the pen to tear down emotional walls.
I will put that in the description down below so that
Yep, and
people.
I'll send it to you. How about that?
Perfect.
So it's
That's
easy
awesome.
so it's easy to
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You can even send me an image. Did you end up going with the
The
page?
one I sent you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yep,
Okay. Well,
yep. And they're actually,
I'll even throw up a screenshot of that up here then too. Then, if you want.
yeah, they're actually. Well, I hold off yet. Hold on. Don't do that quite yet because
Okay.
it's
Okay.
not
Okay.
the finish.
Okay.
No, it's not that it's bad. I just wanted to be the finished work.
I got you. I got you. Yeah, yeah.
Color me particular, but I just wanted to be
Well, I
like
mean,
they're supposed to be
it's
working
your baby, so you
and all
should
that.
be, right? So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So,
yeah, but yeah, no, that's a good. But no, so yeah, I've been writing poetry really since 2013, to be honest. And to be truthful, I hated English. Like I hate it. I hate it. So the fact that I write poetry is almost poetic in itself.
yeah.
Um, but I hated English, but um, for me, like I started off just writing a little bit, and then I realized that man, I can actually like rhyme with words and all this,
Mm,
and I was like, oh, I'm actually a little, I'm pretty good. But I wrote it for myself. Like it was a form of therapy for myself. It
sure.
was therapeutic
Yeah.
because of where I was at the time. Like I was in a bad relationship, in a
Mm,
bad marriage,
yeah.
um, and so I wasn't really open and transparent. Like 2020 me was not 2013 B.
I
Like
got you.
those were
Yeah,
two
yeah.
different, you know what I'm saying? And so I couldn't verbalize and vocalize, a lot of the stuff. And plus, you got to think like I'm a kid from Detroit. Like, it's different. Like where I came from was different. Like we didn't express ourselves.
Yeah.
The only thing we were allowed to express was anger.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's the only emotion that it was cool. So if it wasn't anger, we couldn't really show no more emotions other than that. So that's coming up, like basically in the hood, like that's all that was acceptable. So, but when I got a pen and paper, the stuff I couldn't say with words, I could just write it out, and
Mm,
like that just kept growing and growing, and it was so much easier for me to communicate and express myself, through paper, like things that I wouldn't know how to formulate into words. I can easily write it out, and that just kept, carrying on and on, and I started to share some of my stuff with other people, with my pastors, friends, family, and they were like, "Oh, this is really good." At first I'm like, they just gassing me up, right?
mm.
They ain't gonna tell you your stuff bad.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Close friends, they gonna be like, "Man, you're right, suck, bro." Like, hey, man, you might want to stick to that IT thing you're doing over there.
Yeah.
But a consistent theme from everybody that I show it, like it was striking a chord. Because then,
Sure.
like, I started to like get like poems, like really for me, poetry ended up being a gift that I believe, well,
Mm,
that God gave me.
mm.
Um, and like through that gift, like I could start to communicate, like see things from other people's perspective, write it out, and it would like touch the heart of other people.
Yeah.
Like people will really be touched. Like people will be like, I'm in tears. I'm crying. This really helped me. I feel so much better. Like people will be in distraught situations, read poetry, and then start to feel better.
Yeah.
And I just love sharing it with people.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what kind of led to me writing the book because people used to say, write a book. And I'm like, I'm not writing a book
Well,
because I was scared, to be
the
honest. I was
thing
scared.
to me that definitely comes across through your poetry is the authentic nature of all of the things that you're putting down, right? So everything
Mhm.
that you're putting down there has power to it, right? Because of its authenticity.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
I
You could put that
appreciate
on the
that.
back if you want. That could be like one of those
I'm gonna put
taglines.
that as an endorsement. My man
Yeah.
John said it's authentic, and
Oh,
that's the power.
that's exactly.
I can't pay you for that though.
No.
No, I'm just messing with you. But yeah,
uh,
no, that's one of the things that I've always been is really transparent. Like I've always been real.
yeah.
Like my whole life. Like I always just been real. Like I'm not good at being fake. If I don't like you, I
Yeah.
can't fake it. If I didn't rock with somebody, I just didn't.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't good. Some people are good. Like what I'm saying, I know how to be cordial now. Like
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. But
like
if you have a
but
choice, you're not going to be putting that
no,
effort
I'm
or
not.
energy into something that doesn't feel right with you. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, at all. Like
Right.
I need to be honest. And that's just that's just and a lot of that comes out in writing. A lot of my early stuff was really me having conversations with God and recording it. And then, as I said, it grew into more. Like one of the most profound ones I wrote was called "A Black Man's Struggle,"
Mm,
and I wrote that after I saw like it was one of the first videos I'd ever seen of a police officer killing a black man. Like
mm,
I never really seen it with my own eyes until then.
yeah.
And I couldn't sleep. I was just in the bed, just shook, like
Mm,
traumatized. Like, and I wrote that and I wasn't ever going to share it with anybody.
yeah.
And I did, and people loved it. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even, this was just for me.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Um, I know I might have sent that to you. I sent you a couple, but it's in the book though.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so that's what really helps me. And I think another thing for people is learning how to deal with what you experience in life can sometimes be challenging. Because we often feel like I'm the only person, right? So then we isolate ourselves,
Yep.
we put ourselves away, and or we hide because we're ashamed,
Hmm.
right? Because we we have a public image of ourselves, we have a way we want to be perceived by people,
Sure.
and then this doesn't correlate to that, and so now people are going to look at us differently. And that's the things. These are all things that go about in our mind. Like they're not in there. They're just going about in our mind. So now, it's tough. We're walking around, we're smiling, but inside, we're afraid that if people really knew the real us, people call that imposter syndrome.
Right.
Am I good enough? Are they going to reject me if they see that here I'm struggling here, and there? Not knowing that they're struggling right there with you. A lot of times
Yeah.
they're like, y'all in that together. Y'all just
Everybody has their own battles with
they
different
do.
things that they all have to, work through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But people aren't transparent a lot about those
Yeah.
things. So then you feel like I don't want to break the mold, right? Whereas
Sure.
me, I'm trying to break them because people need to feel comfortable being who they are,
Right. Yeah.
right? And that doesn't make you weird, doesn't make you bad. Just we all been through some stuff.
Right.
We don't always know how to deal with it, but
Yeah.
we do our best.
A lot of the writing is to help get uh, your feelings or emotions out on paper. Do you do any type of writing that's also like positive reinforcement?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's how my writing started off.
Mm.
Like as I grew and transitioned, a lot of what I write is for others. I
Yeah.
want to build you up, right?
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
want you to see,
Gotcha.
who you are. So a lot of the stuff I write it like that I'm writing about is like self-esteem,
Mm.
beauty image.
Yeah.
Beauty image is huge. People don't talk about body image, right?
Right.
And the pressure that men and women face. Like, I mean, we work out, right? And
Right. Right.
so
Yeah.
nobody wants to have man boobs, right? Like, that's I'm just saying, like, you take your shirt off, you're like, oh my God, why? Right? And that pressure, like, of that body and writing those things so that, we can accept ourselves, so that we can feel worthy,
Mm-hmm.
of one of the things people don't talk about is, and I got a few, I say you, it's called The Enemy Within, and that's a poem I wrote on self-sabotage.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
If not, I'll send it to you afterwards. But the difference is behind self sabotage, and we all do it in some area of our life, it's really just low self esteem that tells
Right.
you you're not worthy to have something.
Yeah.
And it's really once people get to see that they deserve stuff,
Right.
then they can have a lot, they can do a lot more because we
Sure.
really stop ourselves from having a lot of good stuff.
Yep.
And we don't do it knowingly,
Right.
right? It looks a lot like I want to make sure that everything's perfect, right?
Sure. And there
Probably
never is the perfect time.
right. And but we say that to other people, but when it comes to us,
Yeah. Yeah.
it applies a little differently.
What's the phrase? Perfect is the enemy of good enough.
It is. I actually had a boss that he was like, "Don't let great be the enemy of good,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and that taught me that okay, everything. So, you can share the image of my book because basically I was being the enemy of that too. So let me send you the one you can share.
Yes.
Let me take my own advice.
We're
That's what
breaking down walls here, man. It's fantastic.
we are. I gotta take my own medicine, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
big proponent of like
Yeah.
trying to, because I know how easy it is to tell other people what to do, but not actually apply it yourself.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, but yeah, I appreciate you asking about that. I'm really looking forward to it. Um, the book should be really good. My hope is that it builds people up.
Yeah.
I want people to embrace who they are. I want them to feel good about who they are,
Mm.
but I also want them to deal, with some of the things that could be challenging emotionally that they've experienced. I really got poems on almost every subject,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Now, I mean, from when you told me that you were thinking about this idea of putting together a book and stuff like that, to when you said, "Hey, it's actually happening," that happened pretty quick, honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so either you were working this behind the scenes, right? or a whole bunch of good things kind of fell in line to be able to happen now, you know, and be out in January. Because seriously, I swear it was like, it didn't, to me anyway, and maybe it's just because it's 2020 and every time is just in a schism and we have no idea. But
that's
it
true.
literally felt like it was like maybe a month or 6 weeks or something.
It you know, the thing was I had already written most of the poems.
Yeah.
So that was the easy part.
You were locked and loaded with that. You were ready to go.
Most of them, yeah. I had it maybe 10 or 15, you know, but I had written most of them. I had most of what I wanted, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I did. No, but I also have a great team that I'm working with, that did the design, the cover. Like that's a team. That's somebody that I bought. A company that I'm working with, that designed the cover. They're doing the editing.
The
they're doing
all that stuff.
Yep. Awesome. So I got a team of people. So thankfully, it's not just me.
Right. Yeah.
There are some responsibilities that fall on me, but nearly not as much. Right. Like, I mean, I'm self-publishing, not going with a big publisher, but
right.
Yeah, it's been a good process. And whenever I get the website up, I'll share that with you. That's underway too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. You have anything else that you want to talk, or I mean, I know you don't want to talk about the Lions, and
no,
and the Pistons probably aren't going to be so hot this year. Yeah.
No, I'm a LeBron fan.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
well, you're probably gonna run it back. So you got that going on.
Yes, we are. Go James. Yep. But cool. I'll let you go do your thing, man.
Well, hey, I appreciate you making the time and stuff like that. And it was awesome to finally meet face to face.
Yeah, or screen to screen.
Screen to screen. Yeah.
Okay, man.
All right, man. Talk to you later. All right. Bye. I hope you enjoyed the chat with Brandon as much as I did. Hopefully it gave you a few things to think about, gave you some insight, and was entertaining. So if you have any other folks that you'd like me to interview in my TCP Handshakes series, go ahead and drop those down below. Also, any other comments on other topics that you'd like to hear me discuss, I'd appreciate those in the comments section as well. As always, make sure you smash that like, subscribe, and notification bell. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other, and we'll be talking soon. All right.